Hey guys, it's Kingdom Orange 2 here, and welcome back to my channel. Alright, so for today's video, I thought it would be fun to go back and rank all of the Bratz films. I've included everything from the Bratz movies to the Bratz Babies movies and the live-action one released in 2007. But before we go on, feel free to check out my Instagram and TikTok pages. It's the same username for both, and I love to meet new people and connect with everyone. So without further ado, let's get on with ranking the 14 Bratz movies. Number 14 is Bratz Babies Save Christmas. I don't know if it's because I kinda hate Christmas movies or that I'm Jewish, but honestly, this movie was awful. I honestly couldn't even really tell you entirely what the plot was because it was so boring. I found myself struggling to pay attention to it. The only scenes I remember being good were the ones that Gran was pretending to be Santa Claus, but even then, if you can't get me somewhat invested in the plot within the first 15 minutes of a movie, it's probably not worth watching. Number 13 is Bratz Pampered Pets. First of all, for the girls who are known to have a passion for fashion, they did spend a lot of time in this movie wearing jeans and t-shirts. And honestly, whoever's decision that was should be fired. However, I really didn't find anything interesting about the plot. The girls tried to raise money for this woman who takes in a lot of stray animals, but to me, it felt more like an episode of the Bratz TV series and not an entire movie. There were just way too many things I just didn't like about this movie. I didn't like the side plot of Jade selling her accessories at a mud health spa. The pet monkey Jinxie was annoying, and I thought the villain and his side goon were pretty lame. It was a shame because this was the only film I downloaded for a 3-hour plane ride. I was honestly just praying the whole time that this movie would be over. Number 12 is Bratz Desert Jewels. So I appreciate the writers wanting to make a sequel to Bratz Genie Magic, but the only thing good about this film was seeing Katya again. The plot centers around Katya and her magic carpet being kidnapped by this archaeologist, Charlotte, and a woman named Aaliyah, who want to use the carpet to find the Lamp of Aziz. Now, I would applaud the writers for using various plot twists throughout the film. The first was finding out that the genie of the Lamp of Aziz was Katya's father, as well as Aaliyah figuring out that her parents never abandoned her, but were killed by Charlotte. But other than that, I found the whole movie overall to be really boring and slow, and I didn't really care about most of the new characters. One thing I'm a little confused about though is that the outfits the Bratz wear in the film aren't even based on the 2 doll lines released for the movie, but instead on an unproduced talking genie doll line that never even included Sasha. And honestly, the looks of these dolls are so uniform and boring compared to the first movies. Number 11 is Bratz Babies the movie. I have a lot of mixed feelings when it comes to this film. I prefer the computer animation to hand-drawn, but I really loved how colorful the characters and the sets were in this movie. A lot of the songs were really good, especially Ready or Not. The plot is also super simple, but I felt like it really worked well for a Bratz Babies movie, even though at times it seemed like the story was never ending. Now I know that even though the Bratz had a bad reputation for dressing too provocatively for teenagers, I never felt that way for the Bratz kids. But when it comes to the Bratz Babies, honestly, what the actual hell is going on here? Teens are rebellious and will wear whatever they want, but babies should not be wearing short skirts and tops. I understand they were trying to dress like Nora's older sister, but who approved this? Number 10 is Bratz Girls Really Rock. I know a lot of people compare this movie to Camp Rock, and while I will say this is a totally fair comparison, I think even Camp Rock wasn't this tacky. Now the main storyline is that the Bratz go to Camp Starshine and are told the very first day at the end of the summer there will be a competition in which the winner will be the subject of David Charles's new film. The Bratz initially want to enter as a band, but over the course of the film they debate as to whether they should pursue their own individual interests. But here's the thing, did the Bratz suddenly forget they were the Bratz Rock Angels? In this movie they never refer to the band by that name, but literally the Bratz Rock Angels not only scored a record deal but also had a world tour, and yet I think Jade refers to their group as a silly little band during the movie. Also, for a film that is supposed to be a musical, I just didn't really like any of the songs. Whoever played Yasmin had an amazing voice, but I didn't really care for any of the songs featured in this film except for maybe It's All About Me. And I just got to quickly talk about Anna. To me, she has as much personality as a box of rice. I did think her storyline was kind of interesting, but parts of it didn't really make sense. Like, was Madame Demidov her instructor outside the camp? Also, I didn't really care for her relationship with Dylan. I know it's good that Dylan has finally settled down with someone, and he seems to really care for her, but I wished he would have picked either Fiona or Brianna instead. Number 9 is Bratz Super Babies. You would think that the plot of this movie would be absolutely terrible, but in all honesty, I really enjoyed this film. Basically, the Bratz babies become superheroes after this weird alien spaceship crash lands in an amusement park, and the remote that was meant to turn the aliens into babies ends up giving the Bratz superpowers. And I believe that many of the plot's elements were really well thought out. I loved each of the girls' individual superpowers and how they were baby related, especially Jade being super sticky. I also loved the designs for the aliens. I thought it was kind of stupid that they were animated to look like vegetables, but in the last scene when the aliens ran away because Gran was chopping up potatoes, I realized that the aliens' appearance was just perfect. Number 8 is Bratz the movie. So what we can learn from not only this movie, but the Monster High movie and even Fate the Wings saga to a certain degree, is that adapting an animated cartoon into a live action one can oftentimes be very difficult. And while I felt like the Bratz really tried shooting their shot with this movie, they did really miss the mark. As a child, I used to love this movie, but rewatching it as an adult, I can see why critics tore this movie to shreds. The dialogue is very cringy, and the plot overall doesn't really make sense to me. I don't really understand Meredith's motivations in caring about the girls each remaining in their cliques. Does she think that people being friends with who they want will cause her to not be as popular? Maybe I'm missing something, but honestly, it's still not that great of a plot. However, I will say that 2 characters from this movie really stuck out to me. Meredith is just overall an amazing character. I think that Chelsea Staub did an excellent job at playing a mean girl. Also, I loved Bubby and her obsession with chocolate. I would honestly watch an entire film just about her. Another thing that I feel the writers of this film did a really good job on was with diversity. I love how each of the girls have a different kind of family structure. Chloe lives with a single mom, Jade's parents are different races, Sasha's parents are divorced, and Yasmin lives with her grandmother. They even made Dylan deaf, which I'm not really sure how I feel about. It was a good idea, but they did a really sloppy job with writing him, and I honestly hate the idea of Yasmin being interested in Dylan. Number 7 is Bratz Kids Sleepover Adventure. This movie was so creepy. I can remember watching this movie as a child and realizing just how creepy it was, which honestly I can't decide if it was a really smart decision for Bratz to do or a really dumb one. Now what I like about this movie is that we get to see more of the girls' parents and families, as well as Dana and Megan in 3D animation for the first time. A lot of the stories the girls told were pretty spooky, especially Sasha's, and I'm now 100% convinced that Jordan Peele used this movie as an inspiration for us, so MGA deserves some royalties. And we cannot move on without talking about the ending. I will speak about it more in depth in my things that don't make sense about Bratz video, but honestly, I'm emotionally scarred. Number 6 is Bratz Starrin' and Stylin'. It's really weird seeing a Bratz movie in hand-drawn animation, but I appreciate that the animators initially wanted to match the film to the artwork displayed on the dolls' boxes. However, we all know at the end of the day, the computer animation is just superior. The overall plot was fine. Even though a movie about prom is super cliche, I think the writers did a great job at making this film their own. And the mystery of one of the girls leaking the stories to the Daily Doings was interesting, especially since it turned out to be Yasmin, who was arguably the sweetest out of all of the girls. However, watching it back, I realized that I can't understand how the girls weren't able to figure it out sooner, especially since there would be times when it was just the 4 of them. But one thing I will say that I love about this movie is just how many characters from the Bratz doll line it incorporated. It's very rare for many Bratz characters to appear in the computer animated TV show and movies, and this film had everyone, ranging from Dana, Megan, Kobe, and Nevra. Number 5 is Bratz Kids Fairy Tales. The first thing I remember about this movie was the lesson, which was essentially putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I think the film did a good job at showing that, even though I always found it weird that the girls were overtly aggressive towards fictional characters. And then I remembered, they are kids. And kids always say stupid crap all the time. What's interesting about this movie is that it tries to answer one of the many questions fans had about Ever After High, which is, if characters knew they were part of a story and suddenly found themselves inside of it, how would they avoid putting themselves into danger? And since the Bratz kids think they can outsmart their fate, they try to do so, but quickly realize they have to think of creative solutions to solve their problems. And I love that the filmmakers came up with interesting ways in which the Bratz were able to complete their stories, like the girls pushing the tree branches together so that the big bad wolf will fall down a well. Now, one thing I will never understand is why the Bratz creators made a film based on a doll line that never existed. Usually these movies are only created to advertise the dolls, but honestly, who knows? Maybe a doll line was in production, but they decided to cancel it last minute. Number 4 is Bratz Fashion Pixies. Definitely one of the creepier Bratz films. I can see why I always remembered it that way, especially since the movie is full of scary music and imagery throughout, which is a bit ironic because it's centered around pixies. But honestly, I love that the Bratz was able to do its own take on the world of pixies. In this universe, pixies are servants of nature and can decide when to reveal themselves. There are also dark pixies, who for some reason like to party in clubs where the strobe lights are so heavy that I would have to leave after 2 minutes from getting a headache. And as much as Lena is one of the best Bratz villains, a lot of her backstory is very confusing. I don't understand how old she is, why she randomly changes her hair halfway through the film, or how she and Cymbeline met each other. But while this movie definitely had its cheesy moments, overall I think that the story and the characters were fantastic, and I wish we got to see more of Brianna and Lena in the shows and movies, just not Cymbeline. I hate her name way too much. Also, I never want to see a skirt over denim jeans again. Number 3 is Bratz Passion for Fashion Diamonds. Okay, so a completely unnecessary comment, but I've always wondered why the name of this film was Passion for Fashion Diamonds instead of just Forever Diamonds like the doll line. But maybe it had something to do with trademark issues? I don't know. Anyways, I love that we got to see both Bratz and Your Thing compete in a road trip across America. But one issue I had with this film is that the competition wasn't really flushed out. The Bratz ended up only having 2 girls compete in the finals, and Your Thing didn't have anybody. Now obviously this was done to make the plot more interesting, and simply because it proved Byron's point, which was that anything could happen on the open road in America. However, if this was a real TV show, it would have been not only boring, but a complete disaster. Even though Byron does point out that the chase with Mandy drew in so many viewers that the network renewed it for a 2nd season, I also really love a lot of the characters introduced in this movie, the third Tweevil, Mandy, and Sheridan, even though Sheridan's best design skills seem to somehow just be gluing rhinestones onto t-shirts and jeans. Number 2 is Bratz Genie Magic. I absolutely adore this movie. I loved how the Bratz writers were able to make a movie that incorporated genies without solely focusing on magic. Well, at least for the first movie. Katya is an absolute gem. I always found the scenes in which she was trying to relate to the Bratz lingo so charming. The conflict of the girls fighting over who was going to get their wish was also entertaining, especially since they learned that at the end of the day they didn't need magic to make their dreams happen. And on top of that, the idea of Con and Zell trying to become super rich by increasing the global temperature is honestly one of the best evil genius plans I've ever heard in a kids movie. I will say that I never really understood how long or why Katya was with Con and Zell in the first place, because she can only grant each of them one wish, but I don't know, maybe that's something I will delve into in another video topic. And finally, at number 1, we have Bratz Rock Angels. I know it's cliche to give Bratz Rock Angels the top spot, and when making this list, I really tried to find strengths in other films as well, but honestly, nothing can really beat this movie. I like how this film serves somewhat as a reboot for the Bratz movies, establishing the Bratz as a group of girls who ran their own fashion magazine. It also introduced us to the most annoying and yet iconic twins of all time, as well as Burdine Maxwell,
the founder, president, editor-in-chief, queen of fashion.
The plot of this film was a bit ridiculous at times, even for a movie that has no elements of fantasy in it. I didn't really understand how a bunch of 16-year-olds were able to somehow start a magazine and create a rock band in such a short amount of time. However, it was so enjoyable to watch, and I cannot fathom why So Good was never nominated for a Grammy. So for some reason, I was really dreading having to watch all of the Bratz films again, and even though some of them are really awful, it was still so much fun. I think Bratz did a great job at taking a simple doll line and making an amazing movie out of it, but I felt like over time the movie started to significantly decline in quality. As always, please make sure to tell me down below your favorite Bratz films and what you thought of my list, as well as any suggestions for future Bratz related videos. If you liked this video today and want to see more content in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you soon. Bye!